Hey up guys, it's the Yorkshire Pudding. This is a video on how to save yourself some extra bank space in old school RuneScape, and then the second half of the video will be how I personally organise my bank. Feel free to copy it if you wish. We're going to start by clearing out all the junk in your bank first before we organise it. There's no point in organising your bank before you've got rid of unnecessary items. First of all, the quickest way to clean your bank is by heading over to the duel arena. First of all, head to the wise old man in Drainer Village and talk to him to delete all useless items which you'll never have a use for again. Next, you may want to consider making a costume room in your playground house, as there's various pieces of furniture you can use to store in items from random events, holiday events, and other fashionscape items like the cape you get from the gauntlet. I personally don't bother storing anything I can get from Diango in Drainer. I destroy any items I can get back free of charge from Diango, using him as my own personal bank. There's also some items you can obtain to further help with bank space, such as a tackle box to store all your fishing tackle and bait. Also make use of the seed vault if you wish. I personally don't use it as I'm not an Iron Man, so I can buy all the seeds from the Grand Exchange whenever I want, and I have a specific tab for all my farming runs anyway. For me, it's easier to have them all in one place. It's entirely your choice. One tip that saved me a ton of room was getting rid of all those pesky lower tier defenders. Yes, you can do the same, but what if I lose my Dragon Defender? I hear some of you say. Don't worry about it. Once you've shown the lady in the Warriors Guild your Rune Defender, you'll always unlock the ability to receive Dragon Defenders from Cyclopses as drops. There's no need to ever use or save the lower tier defenders ever again, so drop all but your Dragon Defender. If you've seen them stash units around RuneScape but never known what they're for, you can basically build them up in these designated spots and use them to store items in. This is especially useful for doing clue scrolls, which require items to complete. Just store these items in the stash unit to save you having to keep buying them from the Grand Exchange every time you do a clue. If you've made the jewellery box in your player own house, there's not much point in storing jewellery in your bank, as long as you've unlocked the tier jewellery box high enough that uses that piece of jewellery. As in, if you've not yet unlocked Dragonstone jewellery in your jewellery box, you'll still probably need an Amulet of Glory and a Ring of Wealth in your bank. Common sense. If you've done the quest one small favour and obtained your steel keyring, get all the keys in your bank and try to put them in the keyring. The keyring does not accept every type of key in game, but you'll probably find that a lot of them fit in it. I personally drop all the other keys that I think I'd never use again, but if you've not yet got the quest cape, you may want to hold on to a few of them just in case. If it turns out I did need one, it's not the end of the world, I can just get another one. Items like molds can be picked up from your crafting room in your player own house free of charge once you've fully upgraded your tool store, or just bought from the Grand Exchange. If I were you, I'd just drop them or sell them, unless you're going to be using them anytime soon of course. Certain items you need from Slayer can be dropped or sold after the task. If you're a high level, you're most likely never going to be receiving another Harpy Bug task again, so you might as well drop your Bug Lantern. If in the off chance you do, you can easily just buy one from the same guy who gave you the task. I do however recommend keeping the Slayer items you use fairly often. If you have a Crystal Saw or Amy's Saw, there's no need to use a regular saw. With regards to the Crystal Saw, constructing things in your player own house will not use up a charge if you have the required construction level for it. It only uses a charge if constructing something you don't have the construction level for. This will only save one slot, but every little helps. You can also do this with the Imcando hammer. If you've got one of them, just drop your regular hammers. There you go, I've saved you 2 slots. There's also some other micro changes you can make, such as getting sets like barrows or the dwarf cannon and turning them into boxes. This turns 4 items into 1. For me though, I think this is a bit unnecessary and requires extra steps every time you want to use them. I wouldn't bother doing this unless you're absolutely desperate for every single bank space. Another tip is to look at your food tab and question why you have the food you currently have. If your food tab has some trout, salmon, lobster, monkfish, sharks, anglers, manta rays, crambwams, pizzas, tunas and potatoes, then ask yourself if this is really necessary. Unless you're an Iron Man, I suggest trimming down the variety of food in your diet. A balanced diet is not necessary in RuneScape. Just stick with the ones you're actually going to use. I'll talk you through my food tab later in the video. By doing Mastering Mixology, you can unlock a potion tab in your bank where you store all your potions. You can then choose how many doses you want to take out, and even favourite the most important ones. And my final tip for saving bank space is something I've taken from my real life. When it comes to organising my actual home, I use something called the 5-year rule. Have you ever held onto something because you may just need it in the future? We all have. However, if you haven't used it in 5 years, you really need to question whether or not you actually need it. Chances are you probably don't. A perfect example is an item of clothing that's been in your wardrobe and you can't remember the last time you even wore it. Get rid of it, donate it or sell it, because if you don't, it'll most likely be there for another 5 years too. There's of course exceptions when it comes to sentimental items or items that you may need someday in the future, but for whatever legitimate reason you haven't needed in the last 5 years, maybe like a first aid kit. If you haven't used it, it may just be because you've never been in a situation where you've actually needed it, but it's probably unwise to get rid of it in that case. It's there for emergencies after all. However, I do find that a lot of the time the reason it doesn't get used is because you simply forgot it was there. In these situations, I find re-looking over your stuff every once in a while can refresh your memory, and if you decide you definitely still need it, try and put it in a different place so you get to see it more often. If you have a jar of pickles at the back of the fridge, bring it to the front. It'll remind you that you have it and you'll be more likely to use it. To relate this back to RuneScape, I did this with my teleports. They've been in my bank for ages, and the simple reason is I forgot I had them. There's been many times they could have come in handy, but I chose to teleport to Nada instead, using the desert amulet and then running southwest to Pyramid Plunder instead of using the carpet ride in Since then I put all my teleports in my room tab where I see them every day. If I decided that I actually have no more use for them, I'd get rid of them, saving some room and clutter. For me, it's less about creating more bank space and more about cleaning up the clutter, making it easier to find things that I actually need. Don't be afraid of getting rid of things, especially items that you can easily buy from the Grand Exchange. I can't speak for Iron Man, as I know obtaining items is a lot harder, but main accounts have no excuse. Okay, now that you've saved yourself some bank room and cleared up the clutter, now it's time to organise your bank. Click on the lock icon at the bottom of your bank screen. Set it to always set placeholders. This means whenever you remove an item from your bank, it will leave behind a placeholder for that item, meaning that when you put things back in your bank, it'll go straight back into the same slot. Most of you will already be doing this, but if not, it's an important step. I've also turned on the insert rearrange mode at the bottom, as it's easier slotted new items next to old than having to swap out each item, which can easily mess up your well-designed bank layout. When initially rearranging your bank, however, the swap option may be easier. Just swap it back to insert after you've set it up. It's hard to explain what I mean by this, but just try it yourself. The important thing is to know that this option exists. Starting off with my bank, you'll notice that there's an icon down here which is the new potion tab after unlocking it from Mastering Mixology. I recommend getting this, but it's by no means necessary. Before I got this, I just had a whole tab dedicated to potions. In my first actual bank tab, I just have my coins. This means they're easy to access. I also use this tab to store temporary items I'm wanting to sell, for example after a Slayer task, bossing trips, collecting resources from the Kingdom of Miscellanea, or just general skilling. Any items I already have like runes, potions, food and ammunition will go straight back into the specific slots, boosting my supplies. Any items not already in my bank will go straight to the top here where I can choose to sell them or use them to create another slot somewhere else in my bank. The next tab is for all my runes, rune pouch and teleports. I used to only store runes here and my teleports were all scattered around my bank, just like this teleport tablet here from my earlier example. This meant I forgot which teleports I actually had. I no longer have this problem. Next up is the combat tab. This is probably the most difficult to arrange. Feel free to arrange it differently to mine. I personally like it this way as it balances out organisation with aesthetics. You could instead arrange it by putting all the helmets on top, followed by the capes, bodies, legs, boots, etc. Whichever works for you. I personally like my barrow sets up at the top. You'll probably notice there's no Torag. That's because he's the runt of the barrow's litter, and nobody likes him. Next I have my books. Admittedly I should probably discard most of these as I don't really use them anymore, but I think they look pretty cool so they can stay here. I'm not really short on bank space. Next I have my blessings. I use the Rada's blessing for teleports. I sometimes save an inventory space whilst bossing or doing Slayer tasks by bringing this rather than a house teleport. The other blessings are there for God War's dungeon. Of course all of these come with the 1+ prayer bonus, so make sure you always bring this with you in combat unless you need the slot for ammunition. Next are my melee weapons, followed by range and mage, and then the offhand slots below. To the right I have some prayer gear, proselyte for melee and Saradomin for mage. Underneath I have my rings, mage capes, boots and amulets for each combat style. I've always ordered them from melee, range and mage to make gear switching a bit easier. Void goes underneath them simply because there's nowhere else for it. To the left I've got my helmets, followed by the body, legs and gloves for each respective combat style. My ammunition's shoved over here in the bottom left. And then at the bottom to bottom right I have miscellaneous pieces of gear, including some hybrid gear. If you reorganise this section, it may take you some time getting used to the new setup. Over time you'll naturally remember where everything is. If it still doesn't work for you, try arranging it as I suggested at the start, where every equipment slot type is put in sequential order. Next up I have my junk/miscellaneous items tab. This includes anything from weapons and equipment used for Slayer, the Shazian armour set for example used when killing lizardmen shamans, the Ring of Karos, course, Ninja Monkey Grigri for the Apatol Agility course, my Dwarf Cannon, etc. Most of these items I'll just use the search function to find anyway when I need to access them once every blue moon. I also have my skill capes at the top, in the order which I achieve them. I'm aware you can put these in the storage in your player owned house. If that's what you want to do, then go for it. I personally think they look pretty cool, so I've kept them in my bank. Capes like the Mage and Hit Point capes are also really useful, and I use these regularly, so I prefer to keep them close at hand. I think everyone should have a miscellaneous tab, as there's always a number of items you possess that just don't fit in any of the other tabs. This tab may look a mess, but in return all your other tabs will look more clean and well organised. Next up is my tools and skilling tab. Starting off with all my tools placed right at the top. Down the left hand side going down to the bottom are all my containers, boxes and bags. To the right of that, also down the side, are my achievement diary equipment rewards. The remaining slots are each of my skilling outfits. At the top we've got agility, then woodcutting, mining, rogue's outfit, etc. Now is a good time to mention the bank filler placeholders. This is a function you can activate by clicking on the icon at the top right of your bank, then clicking on fill at the bottom. Make sure to have loaded up the tab you want to create the fillers in for before you select the option. I've used them here as the equipment used for each skill is inconsistent, meaning that some of them lack the boots, gloves or helmet slots. To avoid it messing up the flow of the bank, I've used bank fillers for the equipment that is missing. Now for the food section. I've ordered them from strongest to weakest. Anglers are the first, as they heal 22 HP whilst also overhealing you past your HP level. Then I've got Moonlight Antelopes which heal 14 HP instantly, followed by 12 over time. This totals 26, being the highest healing single click food item in the game. They're quite expensive, so save them for bossing in situations where you need to heal, but not necessarily overheal like using an anglerfish. The 4 extra HP of their heal compared to anglers can add up over time. It's like getting a free piece of food every 5 to 6 foods eaten. I then have sharks healing 20 HP and being my go-to slayer food as the cheaper. Pineapple pizzas are also another, healing 2 times 11 HP. At the time of making this video, they're almost exactly the same price as sharks, making these a slightly better option as long as you eat after kills to avoid wasting game ticks, as you'll have to eat twice instead of once. If you haven't already done this, stock up on tons of wines. They heal 11 HP each and only cost a few GP. Literally like a few GP. As in, you can probably afford to buy 100,000 jug of wines. So why not? A lifetime supply of food for a few 100,000 GP. The downside is that they reduce your attack by 2, but this shouldn't matter if you're training range or mage. I use them for clue scrolls as well, where losing a bit of attack doesn't really matter too much. And I can regularly restore my stats anyway using my replenishment pool in the player owned house. If you don't have your pool yet, again these wines can be pretty useful to restore your health on the cheap. Just remember to have a sip or two of super attack afterwards if you're returning to combat. To finish off the food tab, I also have some blighted food for wilderness activities, some poison crambwams for Darakin, though if you've got the locator orb it's probably better to bring that instead. I've also got bones to peaches, as although this isn't exactly food, it can produce it. And the holy wrench, so I can heal more prayer points per sip of potion. Why is it here? Mainly because I don't have a potions tab anymore. They're all in the potion storage, of which this wrench can't go in. Moving on to my farming tab, I feel this is a skill that deserves its own tab due to the large amount of resources, tools and supplies you need. It avoids cluttering up my other tabs and makes doing farm runs a bit easier. You can set it up how you like, but the way I've done it is by putting my saplings or seeds I'm growing next to the item needed to protect that respective patch. I'm trying to get the farming pet still, hence why I'm doing it post 99 farming. Now the second to last tab is probably my favourite tab of them all. This is my currency and rare untradeable tabs. It feels bad to finally get that fox whistle or Vorkath said, or grind for a long time getting the calcified acorn only to then throw it in the junk tab. This is not a junk tab, this is treasure. They're precious. If anyone's grinded out mulch pearls before, you know exactly what I mean. This tab is not essential and you could just throw it in the miscellaneous tab, but to me I like the distinction between the two. And finally we have the work in progress tab. This tab stores the items that I'm currently using to progress to some sort of goal. I've just one more item to collect until I've greenlogged the hallowed sepulchre, so I have the supplies at the top, but I'm also training some construction to get those last few levels. I have admiral pies and fish flakes, as again I have one slot left in the aerial fishing log, no prizes for guessing which item that is. Then I'm doing a bit of crafting by turning amethyst into amethyst dart tips, some angler fishing supplies for whenever I want something AFK to do, and finally the mastering mixology minigame to finish off the last couple of collection log slots there. If you like me and enjoy going for collection log slots while skilling in RuneScape, check out the video on the screen now or link in the description for a complete guide to getting all the collection log slots whilst leveling your skills to 99 on RuneScape. And until next time, I'll see you later.